For Malcolm Roger, this isn't historic sexual abuse. He buried the trauma for a generation and more. Only now, through therapy, are the memories flooding back of what happened.
It was hard for me to be labelled a victim of sex abuse within football, to be categorised as having been trafficked within football for sex. That's my niece,
right.
That's my brother's daughter. He was at the forces.
Yeah.
Burying the horror, he joined the army as some means of escape. 14 years service for his country, from Belize to Bosnia and beyond. In his first on-camera interview, he waives his anonymity because his story blows open the dark secrets of Scottish football paedophile rings into a story of trafficking from Scotland into English football for sex. It began here in West Lothian in 1983, site of the now defunct Up All Saints Boys Football Club.
As a young boy, I was very naive. All I wanted to do was kick a football. That's all I wanted to do. And, as long as my homework done, football was next on the agenda. You know? I didn't understand what it was. I was frozen when it was happening. And then the guilt comes on because you're afraid to tell anybody in case you're not believed. You're afraid to tell anybody in case it would affect your chances of going further in the game.
Malcolm Roger was promised the dream by coach Bill Kelly, but Kelly's promises came with strings attached.
You try to put it to the back of your mind, and then it happened again, and then again, and then it became worse. And then at that point, you can't go back. You know, it's happened to you. And
not just Bill Kelly, Jim McCafferty soon joined in on the abuse. He would go on to be a serial paedophile at Celtic Football Club.
And then I was introduced to, this is Jim McCafferty, he's a scout, he can make your career go further. I want you to show him what you do for me. And then you're just left there, stood, used, and cold, you know, numb, frozen.
Malcolm Rogers says both men wanted more, to traffic him for sex with the notorious English coach and paedophile Barry Bennell.
I was told I was going to go to Blackpool a few weeks' time. I was introduced to Barry Bennell as a coach from Man City, and he could really make my career go forward. But what Barry Bennell did to me at Blackpool, my only memory is that it must have been of such horrific nature that it actually made me physically sick. And I can remember being tearful asking Bill Kelly for some cleaning products to help clean the sick up at the end of the bedspread.
Because she'd been raped?
I can only but assume I had been raped. I can't remember it happening.
For obvious reasons, it is usually next to impossible to put the story of the victim of these appalling crimes to the perpetrator. However, for once tonight, that is possible, and we can take what Malcolm has told us to the man who did it, the convicted paedophile. So we set out to find Bill Kelly, knowing that allegations of trafficking now form a new line of inquiry in the Scottish FA's investigation into child abuse in the game. We know newspapers at the time confirm Up All Saints did visit Blackpool. Moreover, Mark Cooper, co-author of the SFA investigation, wrote to Malcolm Roger stating,
"Hi Malcolm, I have forwarded the note from our meeting. It ends with my own assessment that you were trafficked within football for sex. We will need to include your testimony in our final report."
We found Bill Kelly's home and he invited me in and agreed to a short interview.
As you know, just what we've been talking about here, Malcolm Roger says categorically that he was taken with you and Jim McCafferty and trafficked for sex in Blackpool with Barry Bennell. What do you say to that?
No.
Not true?
Not true.
You categorically deny that?
Definitely.
If you deny, that you abused anybody, but you've served a conviction for it, and then you say you denied going to Blackpool with Malcolm Roger, you can see people wouldn't believe you.
I pleaded guilty to everything I had done in black and white.
You pleaded guilty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To everything. I wouldn't put a laddie on the stand.
But at this late stage, you certainly would say unequivocally that you are sorry for what you did.
Yeah.
You don't sound totally sure about that.
I'm sure of it.
You're sure about that?
Yeah.
Right. And if I were one of your victims sitting here now, all these years on, what would you say to me?
I'm sorry I upset you, if that's the case.
In 1987, Kelly admitted 14 charges of sex abuse and indecent assault involving 12 boys over 22 years. The judge, Lord Justice Ross, sentenced Kelly to 12 months in prison.
These are serious offences because they involve young boys. On the other hand, I accept most of the complainers are now adults and do not appear to have suffered any long-term damage.
For Lord Justice Ross to say that the victims didn't show any form of ill effect, then really I think he was either seriously ill-informed or, dare say it, pretty arrogant for him to say that.
Because what's it done to you, Malcolm?
Just completely destroyed what code of practice I had lived my life until then. My moral compass had been completely shattered. I can't see how Lord Ross can say that it didn't have an effect on me.
Medical reports corroborate the trauma and damage that he's suffered down the decades. We can now reveal that only very recently, evidence of trafficking of boys from Scotland to England has changed the course of the SFA inquiry, according to the man leading it.
We have had recent accounts that suggest that that was very much the case. And these have been passed to the English FA inquiry, rightly so, and they've also been reported to the police. I can't comment on them further because they're now a matter for investigation by the police, but the answer to your question is yes, we do have substantive information to suggest that that has been the case.
Jim McCafferty, the alleged go-between trafficking Malcolm Roger south to English paedophiles, remains in prison. Though he's never been convicted of abusing Malcolm Roger, the same goes for Barry Bennell, currently serving a 3-decade sentence for abusing boys in England. McCafferty went from abusing boys like Malcolm Roger at Up All Saints to Celtic, where the abuse would continue at the heart of one of Scotland's, Britain's biggest football clubs. Alex Thompson, Channel 4 News, Glasgow.